also. So we have a
Perfect.
nice.
Perfect. I think we're live now. Welcome everyone to the Women in VC briefing. I have a great pleasure to welcome Cecile from Pitango Group in Israel today with me as the first speaker who will provide her view of what's going on at this point on the technology, on the impact investment market. Cecile is Head of Impact and Sustainability at Pitango Venture Capital, which is one of the largest and most experienced Israeli VC funds. She is also founder of Impact First Investments, and she's the co-founder of the Global Impact Tech Alliance. Cecile, welcome.
Thank you, Kinga. It's so great to be here. I love it when we do projects together.
It's great to see you, and it's great to see you in good health. Cecile, you're the leader of Impact Investing globally. Could you give us a bit of your background just to start off with?
Sure. So I have been very fortunate in my career to be able to tap very early on into the impact investing market. Pretty much right after the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s was when people started asking themselves, what's happened and how can we fix it? And I was very fortunate to work with Paul Bahn and the Nobel Foundation at the time, thinking about the alignment of values, capital, and technology. And on a very, very experimental level, of course, the words impact investing weren't minted. We didn't know what we were doing so much. It was very, we were thinking about how to initiate more activity around the connection of values and tech. And with time, the market became more and more mature. Things like definitions for impact, the Sustainable Development Goals that came along.
That you have behind you.
Yes, that's right. I'm very proud to have that on my wall as guidelines. So things about practices, measurement, tools, more players in the market. So all of that really started happening more and more. So I was very privileged to be there in the very beginning and be able to lead this, this industry, and more particularly in Israel, which was a little bit of a latecomer into the impact industry, but is now really catching up and being the startup nation and very close to innovation and technology. Israel does have the power to be a very strong leader in blending technology and impact without compromising financial returns, of course. We're always looking at the financial returns as well. So I've been really fortunate to be working in that domain. I founded Impact First Investments in 2011 as the first impact tech vehicle in Israel that looked at proving the concept that it can be done. And actually we did that. So we proved the concept, we invested in companies, people got out of their comfort zone and suspicious zone and agreed to invest in early stage startups that create high and measurable impact while creating market rate financial returns. And just recently I joined Pitango Venture Capital, who had been my partners in Impact First already since 2014, in leading Pitango as a mainstream VC, not an impact venture fund, but instead a very mainstream VC across funds, across stages, from early stage to growth through healthcare, and looking at how to implement and adapt the world of ESG and the Sustainable Development Goals into venture capital and how we can implement it across our funds. So to me, this is a great opportunity to mainstream impact, to understand how it can be implemented in mainstream venture capital funds that are not compromising their financial returns, but instead looking at adding an additional lens of how to look at investment opportunities. So that's in a nutshell, my very fortunate career.
That's absolutely brilliant. And it's great to see you leading this effort, which these days is becoming more and more important. We're observing that with the issues around climate change, with the issues around COVID. So could you tell us a little bit more about how you see this link between technology, between investments, with the impact side? And also, if possible, could you just share some success stories out there, you know, which you see as kind of beaming lights on this road, just so that we all get a feel for the real meat inside.
Of course. So first of all, I think, you know, at the end of the day, I aim to have everything impact. So to me, all investments really should be impact. And they should always look at the stakeholders and not only the shareholders. And stakeholder value is extremely important, because at the end of the day, we want to serve people, we want to serve our planet, and we all want to have a better life, and we all want to have good and affordable and accessible access to healthcare, to education, to products. We all want to eat better. We want to have reduce hunger and reduce inequalities. We want to have smart cities that are working for us, and we want to have clean air. So all these things are basic human needs that we all want to have. And if we direct our energy, our capital, and our talent and ability and time, of course, into creating these solutions, then really we're on track and we're doing something important. Now, the role of technology here is critical. Technology, and by that I mean high tech. I think high tech is just not playing enough in the game of the impact space. When I look at mainstream venture capital, most of them are not yet looking in a very systematic approach at how to create positive outcomes for stakeholders. And if I look at the impact market, and the impact market is over $500 billion already as a market size, very small percentage, like 1% of it, is directed to high tech. Now, we have these amazing sustainable development goals, which are designed and defined to be reached by 2030. But how are we ever going to get there without using high tech? It's just not possible. So the marriage between thinking of technology solutions, startups, innovation, to address these challenges that are really human basic needs that need to be out there, and really create much more valuable companies that create much more valuable products that everybody wants, eventually is the key, I think, to our human development. So I see my role as really being able to connect these two worlds, which is, by the way, the reason I founded GITA. GITA is a nonprofit. It's called the Global Impact Tech Alliance, in order to bring all the impact tech practitioners together so we can scale this market, so we can introduce it more and more to mainstream VCs, so we can initiate more impact tech venture capital funds that are dedicated to impact, so that we can all understand that to serve stakeholder value, we need to have high tech involved. Now, high tech and impact go hand in hand. It's a matter of mindset. This is not a specific domain. We're not talking, you know, sometimes people think that if you're talking about impact, you're thinking about maybe only healthcare or only education, but that's not true. Really, impact is a mindset. You could very easily have a cyber company that is directing its product to make an impact. For example, to keep hospitals safe from being attacked and manipulated, or to keep children safe online. Or you could think about property, and how you can actually use property in a smart way that reduces the consumption of energy and creates a community that empowers its members and gives them better economic opportunities. Or you can think of, obviously, healthcare, obviously education. You can think about gender diversity and inclusion, how important it is and how more successful companies will be if women and minorities are included in the management teams and in the boards and are regarded as real stakeholders. You can think of fintech, financial inclusion. People need access to capital. I mean, tell me anything that is not in the domains of gambling or I don't know, harming the planet, and you'll see that very easily you can find that in pretty much every domain you can have a high and measurable impact. So it's really by using technology that we can achieve these goals. And if you want to think about success stories, well, you can very easily look at companies that are, I'm just looking at my list here, just to give real examples, like companies that are in farming, for example. There's unicorns that are looking at indoor farming. Think about indoor farming. how easy it can be to create indoor farming and farm to table in less than 5 miles radius, which leads, of course, to better quality of food, better health outcomes for people, and more affordable access to good food. Think about companies that are in the insurance space or in the financial inclusion space, like M-Pesa and Copa. These are companies that are working in emerging markets and are out there to include people that have difficult access to capital or difficult access to insurance, to really include them in this market. Think about, I don't know, open classrooms, Solaria. There are so many examples. I mean, I'm happy to share a link with the listeners of this meetup so that they can see we've actually created a report on the impact tech market for 2019, which was created by Melina Sanchez Montañez from Impact First through her studies in the US. She wrote a full report that shows that in 2019, $2 billion were invested in impact tech companies, 1 billion out of that coming from impact tech funds, and another billion from mainstream VCs. So, and there are unicorns out there. There's companies that are worth 500 million, $100 million. These are real big companies, and they're also early stage startups, obviously. But no, that feeds the market. But the market is there, the need is there, the capital is there. We have to merge it.
I was just actually about to ask you, because there is this amazing report about impact investing on the Pitango website, which we will share also the link to in the comments to this podcast. Now that was for 2019, and I looked at it, and there was clear progress in many fields. Maybe you could just take us through a little bit of the highlights.
Oh, sure. So, you know, COVID-19 really created a huge opportunity for companies to think about the actual impact, you know, even without saying the word impact, but really the outcomes that they can create. So, for example, we have a company that's doing 3D printing. And during COVID-19, there was a very big shortage of these sticks that you use to collect samples for the testing for COVID-19. So they went ahead and created these sticks. There's ClickDX, is a company that redirected its product to create testing kits for COVID-19. They dropped all the other things that they were doing and actually created testing kits for COVID-19. I can show you a lot of companies that, if you look at I think we should share just a link to the report. It's very nice to see how companies are thinking about their own products and tweaking their business model in a way that serves society and serves the biggest needs right now. And, you know, COVID-19 gives us an opportunity to speed impact into our thought process, because I think we get it. I mean, somehow something went wrong, very wrong. And now let's see how we can really make something that improves it in the future. And by that, I think that we came not one, but many steps closer to including impact criteria into how we see investments and how we see product development and innovation and entrepreneurship. I think this by itself will already create many more new companies that are going to be very interesting and providing real value to people. I think we get it.
I think definitely this is something we should focus on. And as you were giving examples, what came to my mind is that actually we have a joint portfolio company in Poland, Pitango and Exterior, called Tilco, that has spent a lot of time looking at the production process, at the logistic process, at the sustainability of the furniture they sell, to make sure that they are really working towards at least some of the developmental goals that are behind you, and creating a positive impact, while at the same time continuing with their business, which is an e-commerce customizable sale of furniture. So it's actually amazing what you said, that in many, many fields this can happen. And if the founders put their minds to it, and if they really want to tweak the model and kind of focus on working with their partners as well, with the suppliers, on making something good for society, this can be a great example of that.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, right now, because Pitango is really the first venture capital fund in the world, really, that is adapting and adopting these methodologies and the lens that we're looking at, we're looking through at companies. When we are ready with our strategy and with how we think it should be adapted to mainstream VC, looking at a continuum that starts on the ESG side and ends at the SDG side, because obviously not all companies are addressing the sustainable development goals, but at least they need to conduct their business in a very good and fair and equitable way. So when we have that ready, we will be very happy to share it with everyone. And hopefully by making this move, I believe that within a year or two, many of the mainstream VCs around the world will be adapting and adopting these methodologies, because, you know, it's a combination of two things. First of all, as I said, we get it. There's a need. Obviously, there's technology can be a huge facilitator to achieve goals that we need. And on the other hand, the second big power is the millennials and Gen Zs. Also, on one hand, as employees and of the next generation of fund managers, as consumers who are the target of these companies, and as investors that are looking to invest in funds and companies that are taking care of their stakeholders and thinking about them. So I think these two forces will bring the VCs to understand that their LPs are going to require this from them, that they actually themselves care about these causes and they want to implement them. And once they understand and believe that it will not have any negative impact on their financial returns and their fiduciary duties, that will be what will mainstream it eventually. So I really believe that when you look across the board, you will find all kinds of innovation in many types of companies and domains, and they will all be looking at how to address the sustainable development goals and also how they conduct themselves as a good and sustainable business, which is also, by the way, reducing risk, because a better managed business is also a less risky business. So it all goes hand in hand. I think we have to, in a way, fix capitalism in the sense that the target needs to consider the stakeholders. It needs to think about the grand challenges of our world, which are very well expressed through the development, the sustainable development goals. And we need to conduct ourselves in a good and compassionate way. That way, I think we would be on the very right track.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely brilliant. And I know that you are also the mother of girls who are also thinking about this future. So actually, you are also thinking of their future in working this way with the technology and with the venture investment side. So I think that's absolutely brilliant, creating a more favorable future for the next generation. It's wonderful to see.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I am the mother of 4 girls, and I never thought that I would have to be a role model. When I was younger, I just wanted to do my own thing, and I didn't think about going public in any way or be exposed in what I do, because I just assumed that by merit anybody could get anywhere. And I found out later in life that that's just not true, and women really do have a harder time in succeeding and really getting the right opportunities that they deserve. And I started becoming a spokesperson for that and talking about it and including that in everything I do. And that has, in a way, made me a little bit of a role model also for my own daughters, which I'm very proud of, when they think about what it means to have a family, to have a career, to think about what's important, to how do you spend your time, what are your priorities in life. So all these things are on the table in our family, literally, like we really talk about them over dinner. And I think this is a big privilege for me to be able to be that role model. And I really strongly recommend it to any mother. Also of boys, we need to raise feminist boys, of course, and engage men.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I agree with you and Charlie on that one. I was wondering, you are being approached and you are seeing a lot of impact startups. It has been a difficult time to fundraise in general over the last few months. is there any kind of comments or advice that you could give on the current situation in terms of fundraising or in terms of adapting strategy to fundraising? How you are seeing that, if there are any new trends and new developments that it's worth to think about, or some advice to the founders around that area?
Yeah, so first of all, the name of the game was speed. So once the whole COVID-19 situation happened, the entrepreneurs that were quick at understanding the situation, redoing their business and cash flow situation, and adapting it fast are the ones that will succeed long term. We are seeing more chances of success for companies and entrepreneurs that have a runway of at least 18 months. So that was very, very important, to be very agile and react quickly to the situation. And this is, I think, also a quality of a good entrepreneur. A good entrepreneur will look at the reality in the face and take tough decisions sometimes, but move. Second thing that I saw was that a lot of the companies created all kinds of methodologies in order to let go of a minimal amount of personnel, if at all, by reducing salaries for everyone, by working from home, finding all kinds of ways to have the companies continue employing their people. And even the ones that had to let go of people, the good companies were the ones that did it in a very honorable way, that kept supporting the ex-employees and trying to help them find new positions. And when things settled down, started recruiting them back. So I think that those are the successful entrepreneurs. Now, I think that we are seeing through COVID-19 a little bit more of the separation between the necessary and the unnecessary, or the nice to have and the must have. And the companies that are doing something that is in the must-have category will be the ones that will have more success. And I think we need to start looking at, even in new ventures, at must-have. And when we look at ourselves as people as well, who are also potential users of our own products, we need to think what would be the last thing that we take off our shopping list if we had less money. And eventually, the products that create the biggest value for their users will obviously be the ones that will stay and be more resilient. The nice to haves are probably going to be very difficult now. So anything that is like on the margins will probably be less successful. I would focus on finding the must haves. Also, I think the experience of being at home and working from home has changed how we look at commuting, how we look at office space, how we look at food, how we feed ourselves and our families. And that is going to be a big issue. It also looked very well at access to healthcare and digital health. Digital health is booming because you don't want to get out of the house at midnight with a sick child and take it to the hospital if you can avoid it, and consult with the doctor remotely, or be able to separate yourself from sick people if you don't have to be next to them. So all these companies that are providing remote access, be it to work, to opportunities, to collaboration, I think those are going to be important companies. Again, food, I think, is going to be important. The way we grow food, how we consume food. I don't know about you, but I found myself ordering food much more directly from the farmers than from the supermarkets. I think that's been a trend. So this is something that will grow, I believe. More people are going to be more conscious of what they eat and how they spend their time. And maybe also how companies are being designed. Yesterday, we had a brilliant interview of Chemi Perez with the COO and president of Taboola. And he said, we are a company that had a policy of no working from home. We don't work from home. We are all coming to the office. It's a massive company. And of course, everybody stayed home during COVID-19. So they changed their minds. Okay, this is the situation now. How do we do that? And he gave a whole list of things of how they change their model to work from home and be able to accommodate that. And he even mentioned that some people whose job description or day-to-day job just vanished because there was no need for it, they actually looked at them as people and looking at their qualities and experience, and they repurposed them into other parts of the organization. So I think the entrepreneurs and the managers who will be smart about using their people in a smart way, maybe not in how it was designed from the beginning, but still in an open way, that will give them a big advantage. So think long-term, a burn rate as a minimal that is necessary. No big burn rates, I think is important. Think about the necessities of life and what people actually need. So the must-haves and not necessarily the nice-to-haves. And think about yourself as a person and what you would need and what you would use in your daily life. I think this is a good indicator.
Brilliant. I think it would be great. We will surely share the interview with the founder of Taboola also in the comments so they can watch. It was yesterday, yes, the podcast?
Yes.
Yes. So we will put that in the comments. Anything final from you, Cecile, just to add this great discussion today? Would you like to just sort of say a few final words?
Well, first of all, that we need many more women entrepreneurs, many more women founders, and many more women in management and investment positions. So you're an amazing example of that, Kinga, and you're doing a lot in bringing women in venture capital and women founders. And I know because I'm doing some of it with you, but I know you're doing much more. That's really very important. Second, we need to engage men. Without men, we're not creating equality. So let's not trash men. Instead, let's engage them and work together with them in reducing biases and being able to include more women and more minorities. Number three, look at your impact. Look at your personal impact, look at your collaborative impact, and that will lead to really good outcomes, I think. And you also feel better about yourself. I think waking up in the morning and being happy to do whatever it is that you're going to do in your work, in your family, in whatever you're doing today, gives a sense of satisfaction that really doesn't have any comparable. I mean, having a sense of purpose is important. You need to adopt it. So that's my biggest advice.
It gives also a lot of positive energy to share with others.
Yes, always.
And Cecile, you are full of positive energy.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great podcast. It was great to see you. I hope we see each other live soon. And thank you very much for all the interesting comments, suggestions, and we will post those links at the bottom of the email. This was
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kinga, and thank you for creating this podcast series. And everybody stay tuned. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you. That was Cecile from Israel, from Pitango Venture Capital. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kinga. Bye-bye.
Bye.